Grand Rising family, it's High Vibe Hendy here, back with another episode of Advice Nobody Asked For. Once again, I am not a professional. I just have opinions and I share them. I have experiences and I share them. And I hope that they reach you or whoever they're meant to reach, and that it's resonant and helpful in some way. I have no intention of harm. I have no intention of using what I'm doing, to manipulate people's thought process. I genuinely am just presenting my beliefs and the things that have helped me to people who it may resonate with. So if you feel like something I'm talking about or the message isn't for you, then you don't have to watch it and you don't have to listen to what I have to say. But if it helps, please, like, share, comment, reach out if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. My intention with all of this is just to help someone else heal and to say the things out loud that I needed to hear to help me get to where I am today a bit quicker. My goal with these also is to not cut and edit and add too much to the message, because I want you to just genuinely receive these messages as they're transmitted from my mouth directly to this recording and then to you. My last few videos have been kind of discombobulated and choppy because I have been traveling and doing so many things. I just haven't really had time to sit and share a cohesive stream of thoughts. Also, if you relate to having or struggling with ADHD or ADD, it's like this issue where one topic of conversation branches off into several other conversations, and trying to bring it back to your original point when there's just so much going on, and there's nobody there on the other end to keep you on topic, is just I won't say unachievable. It just feels like a far reach. So now that I'm done rambling, let's get into it. Today's video is to focus on a stream of thoughts I just had in my head in relation to the root of our fears and where they're stemming from. When I was younger, we read the children's Bible stories or whatever, if you grew up surrounded by religion or with people trying to introduce that aspect into your life early on to instill some kind of structure and sense of morality that, some parents don't have time to teach your kids. So they're just like, okay, go to Sunday school, go eat a biscuit and listen to them tell stories in a non-gruesome way about terrible, gruesome things that are written in this book that we're all going to read at some point on another day of the week. I would get carried away in my head as a kid and think, what happened? How did dinosaurs become people? And, this is before I know anything about evolution. I'm just, trying to understand as a kid. And my brain starts concocting this story from whatever I have been told, and it just turns into this amalgamation of those things. So in my head, I've concocted this long, drawn out story of how God wipes things out. Now that I'm older, fast forward, I have this terrible fear of natural disasters. And not everybody has self-awareness to know where their fears are stemming from, but the importance of picking apart the root of our fear is because if you can pinpoint where it started, you can find the moment where you need to retrain your thought process and also compare yourself, and say, okay, well, me back then thought this because of this, and it created this fear that is irrational today. And my brain has evolved since then, so I have new knowledge now that I didn't have before. And you can learn how to heal something that your brain has told you by rewiring your own brain. And so, like, if we don't take accountability or acknowledge, or whatever word you want to use, relate back to that moment, you can't exactly fix it if you don't know where it came from. Because that's just part of acknowledging it, because you can't really acknowledge something if you don't know what it is. So when it's presented that you should have this fear of this thing, your brain has this snowballing effect. And if you have this fear for so long, the stress and the anxiety and the feelings that come with that fear follow you, even if you don't, something is irrational. It still is something that sticks with you, because it's something you stored in your body, which I'm not going to get into somatic trauma release in this video, but just Google what somatic trauma is, and like how you store your memories and your feelings and your anxieties in your body, and that stress over time, how it can affect you. Because if we could effectively go back and pinpoint every fear we have and relate it to something, essentially we would have the key to our own healing, and we wouldn't be so riddled with illness, because that is everything is mind over matter. Your illness starts in the mind. Your mind has to tell your body that something's happening for your body to react to it. And sometimes even like when your body produces too much histamine from a bug bite or something like that, you end up making yourself ill, trying to protect something and trying to figure out what it is, but you don't know where it's coming from. So it's like that. If your mind is confused about what you're healing, the process is too much and it takes a lot longer. So back to what I was saying before, I have this fear that stems from that, of natural disaster taking me out, like dying with like some kind of like a tornado or in a hurricane or something like that, because my brain has trained me to think that if I'm wiped out by such a thing, it's because source or whatever higher power is out there, which has changed from my view as a child. I used to think there was a man in the sky, or like a person sitting on top of an anthill, the saying. But I still carried that fear most of my adult life so far, because my brain says that's a choice that somebody else made. A natural disaster, either Mother Earth or God, creator, source, whatever power is higher than me, is just like, oh, well, this is just a waste. We just need to wipe this and erase it because it's not working. And it's like the universe deciding to reset itself because something went wrong. And I didn't want to be that thing that is wrong, which stemmed from a fear of not being good enough, which started in my household and also in places like churches. You have these fears of not being good enough, not doing enough, not helping enough, and then that creates people who become people pleasers. So I invite you today to just tap into what fear you're having, and in that moment think of where it stems from and what brought you to this point. Because if you can analyze and pinpoint the moment where you need to start to healing, you can not only create effective change in yourself, but in people around you and your community. And one day, if you plan on having children, your children. So it can be passed down generationally. And then we have the cycle of healing that starts with us and doesn't have to end. It can keep going because we have so much more information and access to those things today that I can even have the wherewithal and the self-awareness to say to myself that I need to do this and that there's a greater purpose for me needing to do that healing. There was a time when people just thought about how to get up, eat, sleep, and shit, like just like normal functions, basic needs, water, food, shelter, like, you know, now we have access to all this excess information, and even our feelings have evolved, and how we deal with our emotions and how many emotions there even are has evolved so much. It's like, just take a second today to pinpoint where your fears are coming from. And like an example is like, if you have a fear of commitment, it's probably not that you fear commitment. It's probably that you fear not being able to commit successfully. Possibly because you fear not being good enough, but most likely because you're afraid to hurt another person. And you think that if you're capable of doing that, you don't want to make any promises you can't keep, which stems from the fact that you are a good person and you do have empathy and you do care about other people. You can put yourself in other people's shoes. However, you do not think, based with what you have been given in your life, that you fit the quota for that, that you could be the person to take on this huge journey of making a commitment. It's a fear that you have that's irrational because you're capable of doing anything you put your mind to. And you're already setting yourself up for failure, forgetting mind over matter, telling yourself and manifesting over yourself that your fears will come true. And I think that's why we attract our fears, is because we talk about them so much and we fixate on them so much. So that's something to think about. Let me think of another example. Like, if you have a fear of being, like if you have a fear of infidelity coming from your partner, like that you are going to be cheated on. I was trying to say that in a way that didn't sound like childlike and rudimentary, but it doesn't really matter because that's what we're talking about here, is where things are stemming from. And so, start small, but somebody cheats on you, and I won't get into that because that's like a whole other situation, because like, who created this idea? But that's not what this conversation is about. So if you have this fear, it's very possible that what you're afraid of is feeling that pain and that hurt that has happened before, and that's stemming from something in your childhood. Children don't fear being cheated on because they don't know what the fuck it is. But what we do fear is disappointing someone, because our parents tell us when they're upset with us that they're disappointed. And early on, we learn by their tone that that's a big deal and it's not something we want to do. So your fear could stem also from abandonment issues caused by your parents, because then you have this thought that you build up over time that you're not enough. You're not good enough. You're not enough of what was needed to be the glue that held that situation together. And it's never been your job to do that. But now, like, your job is to keep yourself together. That's it. And, so if you grow up with this fear that you're not good enough, you're terrified for that to actualize. You're terrified that somebody is going to come along and make you feel not good enough. Maybe you fear someone else coming along and taking your lover away from you, which would mean that in comparison to another person, which we are taught, you are not enough. And this fear is from a lot of brainwashing from the people who raised us and the things we've seen on television and what's happening in our environment. All of that is learned behavior. And if you can learn it, you can unlearn it or elaborate more on it or advance the knowledge that you already have on this thing. Like when somebody comes up with a theory and then somebody tests their theory years later, and then they add to it, and then it becomes a whole new theory. And evolution is so important in that way, like, because in science or in religion, wherever you've heard or learned any kind of story, there's evidence that if you don't evolve, you become extinct. And it's just, I mean, if you don't learn to adapt to the weather, you're not going to survive it. So learning to rewire our brain is like the stage of where we are at. You have a fear of something that is caused by something else that relates to something that happened before people told you who to be. So you need to go back to that moment, and I invite you to just accept that and sit with that and process that within yourself, and see if the next time you revisit the thing that you thought was so scary is as scary. And it may not always work for everybody, but I think I've calmed down on a lot of my anxiety and OCD behaviors because I've chosen this path of unpacking the things that are buried and uncomfortable and realizing how they've affected me in my life over time and as an adult. So I think this is just a very first step in a long line of techniques that we either need to tell each other about or be reminded about. And these are things you can go pay a therapist to tell you, but I have a hard time trusting anybody in the healthcare system right now because everything is a business. And so I've made it my business to get on here where I can talk for free and help other people. But reminding you again, disclaimer, I am not a professional. I have never claimed to be a professional. I one day would like to go back to school and become a professional to help others and to be what people need me to be, which is somebody who they gave a piece of paper and said is qualified to do a job. And that's another thing. My whole life has been, I have the ability to do these things, but I don't do them because they say, pick a trade, stick to it, get paid for it. And that's what your life has been reduced to. People fear stepping outside of that box because they feel like it'll be time wasted, because if they're not doing the thing that they need to do to make money, they're not going to survive, because they forced us into situations where we're in constant scarcity mindset. We are always worried about losing something that should have been our birthright. And I say this and it sounds so dark when I say it, but I don't mean it like that. It's like, I did not ask to be born. I just was born here. And now I can't even afford to exist here. And it's illegal for me to not be able to afford to exist here. So that's highly problematic and unethical and inhumane and so many other words that I don't have right now on the tip of my tongue. But we're literally out here all just doing our best, and it's absolutely ridiculous that in other places they have free healthcare. We do not have that here. And the healthcare that we do get is really not treating us at our root of our issues. It's treating us only with the intention of continuously selling us medication and continuously keeping us coming back for their meetings. And, I mean, if they tell an addict that they're an addict and that they'll never get better, they'll keep coming to AA. That's what they need. They need you to be dependent on them. And so all I'm trying to say is that, if we could be more dependent on ourselves and our brothers and sisters, if people who had the intention of healing and helping others could be the people who were doctors and therapists, and we didn't have to go to school to learn how to do a trade that maybe we didn't feel like was our passion, we didn't feel like it was a part of our life purpose, but our family said, who cares, go make money, my child's going to be a doctor, my child is not going to be a fucking writer. You're not going to make any money. What do you think? You're going to write a book? What is so interesting that you have to say? But if I want to be a therapist or a motivational speaker, I could take classes, I could get pieces of paper that are stamped by people who are more educated and well versed on this than me. But I think part of the medicine is sharing our experience. And when I go to the doctor, they don't often share their experience with me. They ask me questions, they check off boxes, and they figure out what medication and what next business they're going to pass me to. So just giving advice to friends and family members based on your own experience, which is all that we can do, can be so healing. And I'm doing this because I feel like it is the only way that I can make sense of some of the shit that I have been through, why it would have happened. And if that's my survival technique, then it is what it is, you know? But whatever works for me, and if it's helping other people, then yeah, I would like to do that. So, again, I'm not expecting anybody to take everything I'm saying as fact or, you know, consider me somebody who you should follow after or listen to. I have no intention of being somebody that people, you know, follow. I want you to be authentically your own self. And I want you to take control of your own healing. And I think that's what real healers do, is that they teach you how to heal yourself instead of trying to point you in the direction of healing, because you always have that access to that. And sometimes you just need somebody to say it to you out loud. We all know those times when we'll be having a conversation with a friend who's needing our advice, and then we give them the advice and we stop and we turn and we're like, I really needed to hear that, what I just said. But what's interesting is that I never in a million years would have said that to myself. And now I'm here and I'm saying it to you, and I'm realizing that I needed to hear this. And sometimes that leads to crying and hugging it out. Sometimes it leads to laughter. But the acknowledgement is the important part, because you've received that. Whatever you were supposed to channel to the next person, you've received that. And there's cat hair in my mouth. So it just, however you come to the conclusion of what it is that your fears are and where they're stemming from, and how to fix the roots of your own issue, you won't need somebody in a YouTube video to tell you. You'll have that yourself. And that's my intention. I'm not going to be getting on here and giving messages all the time, because life gets busy and there's, you know, shit we have to do. And sometimes I don't even have service on my phone. So I'm sorry that the videos are inconsistent, but when they're here, if you feel called to watch them, you know, please do click on them, because those messages are for you from wherever, because these things were implanted in my brain like almost overnight while I'm sleeping, and I wake up and I'm like, I have to say this out loud to somebody. And sometimes the best thing you can do is just turn something on and record a journal, a voice memo, you know, any way that you can, what these thoughts are that are being evoked from you when you're maybe in a dreamlike state or just like a relaxed state of mind, you know, because our minds are racing and we're busy all day. But when I get a day that I don't have work and I wake up and I'm here in the bed, I just have all these thoughts flood into my head, and I have no idea where they've come from. But whatever seeds have been planted that sprouted overnight, my higher self decided to pick them and to come and share them with you guys today. So, you know, please utilize them as tools if they do help you. And please share them with your friends if they, you know somebody that could stand to hear some of the things that I'm saying. I know I go off on tangents and I rant because this is how my brain works. It's this constant stream of thoughts branching off of each other and could go on and on and on and on and on forever. Which is why I feel they stimulate us with things like television and video games, because they want us to not do this. They don't want us to pick apart our thoughts. They want us to be distracted, because we're evolved so much today that we have the ability to start talking to each other, to start calling each other out, to start really connecting with ourselves and others, and find the key and the success to healing, and no longer needing the system to 100% support what it is you're doing by helping your fellow brother and man. And it poses a threat to a lot of people for you to be able to take care of yourself. And again, like I said, it's our birthright. We didn't ask to be born, and so we're already taking one on the chin. Like, we're already taking one for the team. We've already proven that we deserve to be here because we're here. So we shouldn't be suffering like this. And, if there's any way that I could help, I guess freedom of speech is all I really have, because I am learning different ways every day, but I haven't ever done anything the way that I'm supposed to. I've never really had the support that I needed to have to get me to where other people are at in life. And I've accepted that as just being, I'm not meant to do that. I'm meant to do what I'm here to do. So I need to stop trying to follow other people and just do what my heart is telling me to do. And my heart says to step out and share my experience to help other people. And I'm terrified of speaking in front of large groups, and being in front of the camera is helping me to be able to speak more, especially with a lot of my my tics. And I've calmed down so much with it. Probably somewhere in the middle of this video, you're going to see me kind of shaking, and I'm going to seem like I'm shivering. And it's because I'm resisting so many tics that are wanting to come up, and you'll see me like itch my ear, turn my head, blink my eyes, squint my face, whatever, because I'm trying to focus on how to speak to people. Because if we sit here and we laugh about my tics all day while I'm trying to tell you guys what I'm trying to tell you, it's really hard for me to get past it and get the messages out. So I've figured out what triggers me and how to be more in control of them, so that I can channel one tic that I would normally be having into something else. I do this so much. That's a tic. I just blanked out for a second. Okay. If you have something to say, say it. If you have something that has popped into your head that you feel like you need to say that can help other people, I should specify, that can be helpful to other people, please choose to do so. And I'm gonna go back to sleep and have the best nap of my whole entire life, because I rolled over and woke up really early and got up and just started cleaning vigorously while thoughts ran through my head. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna take this video and say what I need to say before it runs out of my head. And I realized I wasn't done sleeping. My body woke me up and jolted me awake. And the excitement was all just because it was like, there's something you're supposed to be saying right now. And so I got up to come talk about this. But I hope that this message gets to whoever it's meant to in the time that you need to see it. And thank you for watching. And I love you. And I hope this message helps someone. Thanks for watching.